Hi everyone, welcome along to today's podcast. My name's Debbie Roberts and I'm from Property Apprentice, and today's subject we're talking about how to protect what you value the most. So when you ask someone what it is that you value the most people think immediately of their family, and loved ones. But when you're talking to an insurance agent, often the first thing that you think about is the property and possessions that you own. So I think it's really important that today we cover the whole bases. Especially if you're interested in increasing your net worth, then you need to make sure that you're protecting the whole picture, not just your properties that you're looking at purchasing. Okay. So with me today, I've got Mike McCarthy from MiTeam, Mortgages and Insurance Team, and I've got Isaac Mutu from O'Connor Warren. So a lot of our clients at Property Apprentice have already worked with Mike from MiTeam. He does an insurance audit or a review of what your current insurances are. Now, you don't have to be a client of Property Apprentice to work with either Mike or Isaac, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Mike now so he can talk about what he does as part of that insurance review and why it's important, and then what insurances he covers, and then we'll introduce Isaac to you. Well, we'll introduce you to him again, and then Isaac can talk about what he does and the reason why we refer to him. All right, so over to you, Mike.
Cool. Hey, thanks, Debbie. Good to see you again, Isaac. My role essentially is to make sure that people understand their insurances first. Many people have brokers or people that have sold them insurances that they've lost touch with, and they just pay money and just forget what it's all about and what they're actually paying for. So that's primarily the first thing. And also next is to make sure that the insurance you have is relevant for your situation, because as time goes on, your needs change. You may be married, you may have kids, you may have grown up kids, you may have less debt. So over that life stage, your needs change and your requirements for insurance also change. So many people also, like Debbie said, consider their families as their most important thing in their lives, which is absolutely true. Then you think of your most important asset, and many people don't actually consider that the actual ability to earn is actually the most important asset. Their ability to borrow is their most important asset. So many of us have goals and dreams, whether it's to retire with rental income or whether it's to retire on a beach sipping cocktails, etc. And you can have the best advisors along this process, whether it's Debbie advising you on property investment, whether it's lawyers, whether it's accountants, and things can be very predictable. And the key thing really that I worry about for my clients is the unpredictability. What can actually get in the way of those goals and dreams?
It's those left field events that completely derail some people if they don't have the right sort of protection in place, isn't it? And just speaking from my experience with our clients that have worked with you, you've saved so many of our clients a lot of money because they were paying for insurance that they just didn't need anymore. So be a bit of a raving fan for Mike for a minute. We've got clients that are like, he was awesome, not salesy. Not salesy, because that's the point. Like, Mike's there with you for the duration. So he wants to make sure that he keeps your business rather than just do a one-off sale and walk away.
Absolutely. It's about the advice and just making sure that your insurances are relevant, because like I said, through your life stages, your needs change. What I was just going to mention also is that from the biggest things that can happen that can derail you from an unpredictability perspective is your house, for example, might burn down, or your tenants may be smoking meth, and you may not be correctly insured. And that's where the likes of Isaac steps in, who's amazing around the fire and general side of things, etc. The other alternative, the unpredictable things that can happen in life is you may lose your partner, you may lose your income. So what happens there? The idea is that you may take a financial hit, but our job is to make sure that you can recover from that financial hit and keep those dreams alive.
And not lose everything that you've worked so hard for in the meantime. One of our close personal friends had a head injury, quite a nasty head injury, and we're talking 2 years down the track and she's still not working full time. So things like that, if you don't have the right sort of income protection or, well, I don't know the right terms for the insurance, but you've got to have the right sort of protection in place. Otherwise that can really affect things. She could have potentially lost her house and everything. So.
And part of it is also understanding where ACC fits in, because that is a type of insurance that everyone pays for, and I'm an expert on that. So, and make sure that you understand how that's going to affect your existing insurances, etc. So, it's really, really important to actually review your insurances. So just lean on me, give me a call, and have to guide you through anything, whether it's cost reduction, which is also a big thing that a lot of people have approached me about lately as well. As you get older, your premiums increase, especially when it's insuring your health. There's strategies to deal with that.
And when it comes to getting lending, if you're paying for insurance that you don't need, that'll affect your borrowing capacity as well, because your expenses will be higher. So it's really important that you do have a review of your insurances to make sure that you're not paying for stuff that you don't need. So, Mike, do you want to just give a quick summary about the types of insurances that you can help people with, and then what we refer to Isaac for?
Yeah, my specialist area is really ensuring your ability to work, mortgage protection, income protection, making sure it's the right type for you, making sure that you're not overinsured, making sure that what you've got equals your attitude to risk, health insurance, trauma insurance, which generally pays a lump sum, and also life insurance as well, and understanding what is a good amount and what is a relevant amount to your situation, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're divorced, whether you're getting older, whether you've got debt, whether you haven't got debt, etc. So it's about having that relevance and not paying for more than what you need, but making sure that you cover it and you understand exactly what is going to happen.
We've previously done a podcast with Mike where you talked about the benefits for self-employed people, talking to you about their ACC, because that can make a significant difference to business owners as well. So, yeah, if you're in any of those situations, then Mike's the person to go to. Okay, Mike, so if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, just give us a call on 0800 8822 99. You can text message me 021 36 48 48, or just send me an email, mike@miteam.co.nz.
And just remember, it's MiTeam for mortgages and insurance, not MY team. We talk about it being my team, but it's I. Yeah. So just as full disclosure, I can't remember whether I said this at the beginning or not, but Paul and myself, so the owners of Property Apprentice, we're also part owners in MiTeam. So just full disclosure there, we have got a shareholding in that business as well. All right, so if someone gets in touch with you, Mike, and they get an insurance review done to make sure they're not paying for dumb insurance, then you refer, in certain situations, you refer them through to Isaac? Absolutely,
yeah. So what's a really good idea is if you can get any of your policy documents that you may have, or even just look at who you're paying, on your bank statement. If you can't find any information, look who you're paying. You'll see policy numbers generally on your bank statement. Ring them, they'll ID you over the phone, and I'll send you through your policy documents. Send it through, and I can just explain to you exactly what it means and how it works. A lot of people send through their house contents insurance, car insurance, and a lot of people are also looking for rental cover. And that's where Isaac comes into it. He's our specialist, and I've been working with Isaac for years, and we've kept in contact, and he's the man when it comes to looking at that side of insuring your assets.
In simplistic terms, if we sort of consider that Mike looks after the insurance scope for people and people problems and people's inability to work or generate their income, I guess if we siloed that, I guess the comparison I would make to Mike is that Mike looks after and arranges the insurance for the people, and my side of the fence, which is a totally different qualification, is it's the bricks and mortar, the physical assets themselves, and the liability that comes along with owning and operating those assets, be it something as simple and benign as a vehicle or a house, through to large companies. Everyone they've got requirements that they have to abide by, particularly if we use the example of property owners with tenants. There are lots of obligations and rules. Many people have requirements and lending obligations that are tied to that, which require certain types of insurance. In simplistic terms, it's the physical assets versus Mike looking after the people and the people challenges.
Excellent. And one of the things that we've certainly noticed, especially over the last couple of years with rapidly increasing house prices, is that a lot of people are underinsured for their home, aren't they? And their rental properties. Do you want to talk a little bit about the replacement value issues that we've seen?
Yeah, occasionally you still see, once you have an understanding of what you're doing, you'll realize really quickly that a market value or a purchase price has no correlation whatsoever to the actual rebuild value of your home. And as technology has advanced, what we have seen is people move to a whole raft of calculators to qualify the rebuild value of their homes. And I, for one, I'm not a quantity surveyor or a valuer. I wouldn't know how to put a dollar value on my home. And that's where the likes of these calculators that have been online free calculators that have been developed over time have become relied on to the point where some of them are hardwired into a lot of those insurance companies' websites, because one of the first things people will do is they'll hop online and they'll want to work out a quote. But obviously, the pricing for your insurance a lot of the time is based on, obviously, first and foremost, that rebuild value, and it's how you come to quantifying that rebuild value. And the last 3 years has been a great example of rampant increases in construction materials. Those are all the sorts of pressures or inflationary pressures that go into calculating that. And people like to throw round numbers at rebuild costs. So you have to take a look at it. They take the old school square meter rate, or that might be 350 or 400,000 is probably going to be enough. Now, that becomes quite dangerous, because if it's just a dart at a dartboard, then you can use that as a benchmark against other insurers. But what often happens is you might have a nice low premium price and you might be saving yourself, arguably a couple of $100 a year potentially. But the other side of the fence is that underinsurance could result in you being short hundreds of thousands in the event that you completely lose your house in a fire, flood, or otherwise. The other side of the fence is it really comes down to individuals and, I guess, their appetite to put the effort into attention to detail. Now, quantity surveyors and valuers are probably still the safest way to go in terms of quantifying that value for your home. And I say that because with these online calculators, you have nobody to hold to account if they get it wrong. When you're paying for a professional service, like a valuer or a quantity surveyor, if anything does go wrong, you get to hold them to account for that error in the advice or professional service that they've given you. Whereas if you've just procured a number from an online calculator, I'm fairly certain there are terms and conditions in all of them that say it's all care, no responsibility. And I guess a large part of it is education of individuals and what they're actually agreeing to, and potentially just making sure that you can, if you need to, where to find those professional services to assist with it.
One of the common things that we've seen over the last 12 years that we've been running Property Apprentice is that, and especially with all the changes in the way that insurance worked as far as replacement costs go, one of the things that we noticed was that when people were using the online calculators, they weren't taking into account the cost of demolition. Like if your house burns, it doesn't burn clean to the ground. So you'll have some demolition and removal costs involved as well. And a lot of time people didn't take that into account. So yeah, absolutely agree with you. Getting a quantity survey is a good idea, because they will factor that in when they're coming up with a valuation, an estimate for the value to replace it.
Yep. And that's some of the other concept. And it's more around an education piece, because a lot of people have just taken comfort historically in punching some numbers in online and getting a number that is competitive against another number. But it's really the groundwork that goes into setting that figure that you're basing everything off. Because yes, that number is going to increase, because we look in our own construction industry. We've got huge labour shortages, timeframes to rebuild things, and nothing's being done any faster. And with, like I was saying earlier, with those big increases in construction costs, the same piece of timber is probably going to be 7 to 10% more expensive in 12 months' time. And all of that, those are all the factors that need to go into that. And as lay people, we're not qualified to guess those numbers or make educated forecasts on what those are going to be, which is where the likes of the surveys and the quantity surveys have some real value.
And so, as far as giving landlords a bit of protection against situations where good tenants turn bad, Mike talked about this a little bit earlier. If your tenant has a big party and contaminates your house with methamphetamine or turns it into a P-lab, God forbid. But I mean, seriously, although it doesn't happen a lot, you need to protect yourself against that. And we've always been big fans of landlord protection insurance. So landlord protection insurance is something that you can help with as well, Isaac?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the common things we see are just your basic landlord's cover, which most people are familiar with. And then often, especially in sort of smaller body corp situations, you'll get elements of landlords owning some of the effects that are in the properties themselves. Yeah, so often you'll have elements of the standard landlord's cover, which most people are familiar with, but it's a very sort of broad brush term, because when you drill down into them, there are all sorts of things like loss of rents cover for particular scenarios. Touched on methamphetamine as a scenario as well. That's a really ugly scenario that can go really pear-shaped really quickly. And then there's also one that property owners often don't think about, but it's actually their liability as the property owner. So every now and again, there are situations where a fence may fall onto a tenant's car, or you have masonry coming off a building and crashing into stuff, or worst case scenario we've had, so permanently fixed heat pumps coming off walls and smashing through TVs, and you actually have an obligation and a liability to your tenants when your property causes damage to their property. So that's another thing that is often not considered, but when you put some scope and perspective around it, it's sort of well within the realms of possibility in terms of what you need it for.
Excellent. Okay. So I know from our personal experience, insurance is one of those things that we like to not think about. So, but certainly when you need to make a claim, you're really pleased that you've got it in place. We've had a couple of situations over the years where we've had to make a hefty insurance claim. One of the more recent ones was during a storm. Our batch, the roof on the batch, was damaged during a storm. And yeah, this is, in my opinion, this is where the likes of you guys really comes into its own. If you don't have an insurance advisor on your team that can go to battle for you, you have to do it yourself. And so with our batch, for example, it is part of a body corp system. And so we didn't get a choice as to who we had as our insurance advisor. And Paul literally had to do all the donkey work himself. It was like he was chasing up that insurance. It was ridiculous, the amount of time it took him. So just to have some professionals in your team that can have your back and go to bat for you if something does go wrong, it's really beneficial. You've got to think about what your time is worth. And I'm sure that if you're in a situation where something stressful happens, the last thing you want to be thinking about is dealing directly with insurance companies. So have professionals like Mike or Isaac on your team, and they can do all that for you. Take the stress out of it.
Absolutely. In fact, here's another thought as well. Let's just say you're a landlord and you've got an issue with the house, and the house is tenanted. You're going to have pressure from the tenant to actually get that claim sorted. With a broker, you are going to get a speedier claim resolution. Brokers do actually have massive amounts of clients with companies, and they can pull their weight, and that can also save you a lot of stress as well.
Absolutely. Coming back to another example of ours, it sounds like we've had all sorts of nightmares. Like this is spanning over 20 years. So, but we had a situation where we were in the UK visiting Paul's family, and it was after a death in the family. So highly stressful situation. We had a phone call from the property manager saying that one of our rentals had a fire. So this was a perfect example of why we work with professionals like these guys. So we picked up the phone, and so we spoke to the property manager and found out what had happened. And then we picked up the phone to our insurance advisor who works with Mike. He's one of the other owners at MiTeam. And between the property manager and our insurance advisor, they sorted everything for us while we were in the UK grieving. So just take that pressure off you and lean on professionals who are experts in their field. That's my experience. Highly recommend it.
You never see everybody knows that ultimately insurance is a bit of a grudge purchase from most people's perspective. And a lot of people don't realize that what you're actually paying for is that claims experience, because otherwise it's either a bank enforced requirement, or it's a lot of people will see it as an investment that there's no return on. But ultimately, when those larger events do happen, like the fire that you're referring to, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's what you're actually paying for. It's when, in the time of need, you want what you're paying for to be executed as efficiently as you can. And I guess to go into bat for the agent versus the direct insurer, what you are actually paying for is partly that independent voice that can advocate on your behalf rather than being sort of dictated to by the insurer. And a lot of people are not going to be familiar with a lot of the jargon that's being referred to by the insurance companies. You just want the problem solved so you can get on with life. And I guess that's probably one thing that I'd comment on in terms of some of those serious claims.
The other thing is, with rental properties especially, claims can be multifaceted. And if you're going direct, you may not actually claim on things that you may be able to claim on. You may have damage to your property. It could be malicious damage, could be loss of rents, etc. So it's really important to have someone in your corner.
Yeah, and I mean, even little things that can turn out to be big disasters. Like, I mean, we've had situations where we've spoken to people who had landlord protection insurance, but when they needed to make a claim, they discovered that they had the wrong type of landlord protection insurance. So they were managing the properties themselves. And one of the conditions of the insurance policy was that the property had to be managed by a professional property manager. So they unknowingly voided their insurance. So yeah, they'd been paying for insurance all that time that was absolutely wasteful.
Landlords' obligations.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get these guys to help you out and make sure that you've got the right insurance for the right cover, and that you're not paying more than you have to protect the stuff that's most important to you.
Yep, it's in your policy wording, landlord's obligations, and that's one of the reasons why you have property managers.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, Mike, how many people do that read all the fine print of every single contract? It's like, I mean, every time you get an upgrade from Apple, do you read all of the fine print? This is where people get stuck. This is where people come undone. So yeah, and that's why we rely on the likes of you guys. All right, so is there anything else either of you would like to add in just before we wrap up today's podcast?
I think it's just more around just knowing that we're here and we're available and we're on your side, whether you're with Property Apprentice, whether you're listening to podcasts and you're not a client, give us a ring. We're here to make sure that you understand what you've got and whether it's relevant. Yeah, so just lean on us.
And Isaac, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
It's probably via Mike, to be fair.
Just refer back to Mike's earlier comments. So Mike at MiTeam or office at MiTeam, and the 0800 8822 99, and these guys will look after you. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you for joining us today, Isaac and Mike. So yeah, thanks for watching.
See you later, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.